Good morning, afternoon, evening, or night to everyone, wherever you may be. We are very, very excited to have the opportunity to come and chat with you about what we do and how BIAN can help transform banking architecture. So as Miguel mentioned, I'm Nishan, and I'm joined by my colleague Mamta, and we're going to spend the next maybe 45 minutes to 50 minutes taking you through what BIAN is, how it solves some of the more pressing challenges in the banking industry, and hopefully we will get the opportunity to address any questions you may have, and always happy to continue the discussion later in Slack, or if you connect directly with us through LinkedIn. So we will just get into it. Thanks, Mamta. So we'll start with a quick introduction of CC&C. So CC&C is an enterprise architecture consulting firm. We have been around for 20 plus years now. Sorry, Mamta, I think we might need to move to the next slide. Oh, perfect. We have been around for 20 plus years. We specialize in enterprise architecture across a number of verticals, but we have a particular focus on banking, and within banking, an even more particular focus on BIAN. We assist clients in all parts of the world with their BIAN adoption, including training, the tooling, the architecture governance, and consulting to apply BIAN at a practical level in the organization. We're also proud to be active BIAN members since 2020 and contribute to several BIAN working groups, as well as presenting in summits and conferences. And we're also one of the only BIAN accredited training providers with a global footprint. So just a quick word about BIAN itself, if you haven't heard of it. So BIAN stands for the Banking Industry Architecture Network. It's a not-for-profit organization that was formed back in 2008 by a coalition of leading banks, vendors, system integrators, and consulting firms who got together and decided to solve a very pressing problem that was facing the banking industry, and which is there was no industry reference model for banking that could be used as a definition of banking capabilities to organize the architecture and to standardize banking components and banking interfaces and banking data. So BIAN was formed to provide an industry-first standard model, and in the years since its inception, it's made huge leaps and strides in tackling the core problem of composability, interoperability, and data. And where today BIAN has enjoyed significant adoption across the industry and continues to grow, both in terms of member organizations that have joined, as well as the adoption within organizations. So it's an exciting time to be working in this space. We have assisted, as we said, many banks and credit unions with BIAN skills uplift, certification, and implementation. And we have a footprint across Europe, Asia, the Americas, and have also worked in Africa and, of course, Australia, which is where CC&C is based. So if we jump to the next slide, what I'd like to start with is maybe talking a bit about just the challenges in the financial services industry today, to have a bit of a level set. I am hopeful and in fact willing to bet that many of the data points that we will talk through on this slide will resonate if you work in a bank or with a bank. I'm sure that you've probably come across many of these challenges, and I'm sure these will relate to you. So starting at 1 o'clock, over 52% of digital initiatives take longer than expected to realize value. That is, of course, a big challenge for organizations when investment has been made and you have to see a return on that investment. The longer it takes to realize value, the longer the payback, and your financials suffer as a result. The next one is probably will resonate with a lot of people. 76% of banks build the same capability more than once. And the root cause of that really is the fact that it's, traditionally banks have lacked having a standardized capability that allows them to very quickly determine when you take on a platform or an application or even build something in-house, to have an apples-to-apples comparison of exactly what capabilities it has and how they relate to other capabilities that might already exist. 65% of corporate IT will be expected to do more with less budget. Again, a very common theme. Technology is a cost center. It doesn't directly generate revenue for banks. However, banks rely on the technology to differentiate and to offer, modern sort of experiences for their customers. And so technology is in this interesting place where it is crucial for service companies in the modern digital age, but it is definitely under cost pressure. And as enterprise landscapes get more complex and more convoluted, the underlying cost base continues to grow, and that, of course, puts pressure on, again, the financials. The next one, cost of data breach, 37% higher in banking than global average. That's quite a scary statistic. And of course, now with all of our data online and so much of our lives being digital, data breaches and security is top of mind for everyone, right? Whether or not you work in a bank or you're a customer of a bank. So the fact that banking suffers from, a higher than average cost of data breaches is, again, a big challenge for organizations. More than 10% of revenue is spent on regulatory compliance. So money that could have been spent on improving customer experience or operating differentiated services is spent basically just keeping the lights on and keeping your banking license. So again, having a legacy technology stack and a big surface area to cover in terms of control gaps and the like does cripple banks from being able to invest in where they should be. 59% of digital initiatives take longer than expected to complete. So this is somewhat related to the first data point. In this case, it's really talking about projects actually completing on time. And of course, again, a lot of that's just due to the complexities of the IT landscape. Over 80% of investment is spent on legacy tech. Again, that probably resonates with most people. If you're working in banks today, a significant portion of a typical bank's ecosystem is already tagged as retire or run to kill or whatever terminology you use in the region you work in. And that just simply means that you're basically spending dead money. You're putting it in something that's not going to see you into the future. And last but not least, 63% of CIOs struggle to communicate IT's value. Again, when technology is meant to be at the forefront of how banks offer differentiated services, it is more important than ever for technology and IT leaders to be able to articulate the value and the business capabilities of what they bring to the table, not just in terms of applications and infrastructure. So all of these challenges, facing banks today, I'm sure, are no surprise to those listening, and they paint a pretty dire backdrop against which BIAN you'll hopefully see in the next in this session how BIAN will help with these. So if we jump to the next slide, let's have a look at some of the root cause of a lot of the issues we just saw on the previous slide. So the picture on the bottom left is probably, again, a somewhat familiar one to many of you, right? Banking as an industry has suffered from what we call a head start handicap. Banks are one of the first to introduce technology in a big way, in the way the business was conducted. So transaction processing and bookkeeping and ledgers and things like that were all moved to computers as soon as computers became viable. And as a result, we carry probably more technical debt than most other industries. We have systems, we have mainframes that are, I would argue, probably older than anyone on this call. So this is led over time to a very convoluted architecture. It is very common to have closely coupled systems where you've got your product processors that have a ledger integrated into them or a customer master. And you've got core banking with payment processing capability encapsulated in it. It's over time as speed to market and just kind of getting the project done on time was more important than anything else. A lot of shortcuts get taken, and the architecture gradually gets more and more messy, more and more complicated. And as it gets complicated, it's easier, cheaper, and faster to just build another piece on top of it than to go and clean it up or to look at how you can leverage what's already there. You also get fragmentation and duplication of capabilities as new systems are deployed over time without any cleanly defined separation of capabilities and interaction. And this is where the lack of a standardized model and the lack of an interoperability standard has really hurt banks in the long run. And last but not least, of course, system of APIs. They grow organically over time and create enormous redundancy and complexity. So in this day and age, it's far easier to just build a new API than to go and understand what APIs you already have, which ones can be reused, and extend rather than create new. But they're not the only problems. If we look at the top half of the screen, there's also a challenge how strategy and business capabilities get translated into the initiatives that then ultimately result in these IT changes. So ordinarily, an organizational strategy will deliver a number of benefits to customers, shareholders, and employees through initiatives. So normally that gets mapped out, it gets done as part of your annual planning and board strategy setting. And usually the mapping of initiatives to benefits and the linkage of those initiatives to the strategy is well understood. However, the impact assessment of systems within initiatives is commonly an unstructured process. It's prone to gaps and errors. Projects get stood up. They basically determine which technologies need to be updated or created. And it's usually done with a very narrow lens. It's a project-centric lens focused on meeting schedule, meeting budget. And because of that sort of lack of a common capability layer, most organizations don't have a clear line of sight on how various systems in the enterprise contribute to the strategy and benefit. So it becomes very difficult to make the right decisions down at the technology level in terms of, should we build this instead of that? Should we upgrade this instead of that? Most of those decisions get made without any clear linkage between the application or the infrastructure it sits on to the customer and the benefit to the organization and the bottom line. So if we move on to the next slide, I will now, so hopefully these challenges have resonated. I will hand over to my colleague Mamta to talk about where, how does it do at BIAN and designing the bank of the future come into this picture? Thanks, Mamta.
Thanks, Nish. So Risha did paint a picture which was very not so very nice. But having said that, it's not a problem that is not solvable. A couple of years back, if you guys have not already heard, I think Gartner came up with this approach and concept which is not just specific to banking, but yeah, definitely very much applicable to banking, is to think of building the businesses as composable modules, composable capabilities. And they came up with this 3 different layers of composability that they said. One was talking about composable thinking. So when you're looking at mindset in the organization itself needs to be building this reusable capabilities, composable capabilities, and not trying to build just for the sake of building something and meeting the immediate need. So thinking of long-term, composing those things that needs to be delivered for a long-term value to be delivered to the organization. The other aspect of it was the composable business architecture. So what are these capabilities which could be then composed into your technology, and that's the third pillar of it, which is composable technology. So all these 3 needs to be together to be a business, to be future ready, and that's very much true for the banks as well. Overlaying to these 3 dimensions were the four characteristics of this composability which they proposed, which was orchestration, modularity, autonomy, and discovery. Orchestration is, if you're looking at capabilities, we should be able to orchestrate these capabilities rather than trying to link these capabilities together, which is a very one-way flow approach. We need to look at looking at building them together as and when we require faster, which will bring the required agility that an organization requires. modularity, that we should be able to identify and reuse, they build in a modules which are decoupled with each other, autonomy, that we should be able to operate and have ownership of it as an autonomic unit. And the last but not the least is that we should be able to discover it. So everyone in the organization should know about them. They should be able to identify them. They should know what they mean, and hence when it comes to reuse, that they know exactly what needs to be reused, where it is in the organization itself. So this is what Gartner came up with, and they very recent survey that they did realized that actually this trend is not this acceptance and adoption of this concept of being composable is not very alien to the organization itself. There are organizations which have already embarked on this journey in different industries, not just in banking. And this research was done as recent as 2022. And there was a more recent survey, which is there on the last slide, which you can see of how organizations are looking at composability. And you can see that a lot of organizations have started moving towards being more composable. However, there are very few which are at a high composability at all three levels, which is talking about composable thinking, architecture, and technology itself. But definitely in a positive direction where we're moving towards.
Thanks, Mamta. And I think it's important to note that composable thinking is a very it's actually very, very important in terms of how it drives the other two, right? So with clients we work with, one of the hardest shifts to make is actually the culture of the organization, to start to think about capabilities and putting together journeys and user experiences, not as a single, I need this application or I'm going to design a static process, but rather as an orchestration of, essentially banking building blocks, where you can start to think of a journey as leveraging a number of discrete capabilities that have to be orchestrated, brought together to deliver value, rather than thinking very kind of monolithic.
Yep. Thanks, Rish. Exactly. With that same thought, what Gartner also recommended was to look at building these business capabilities, what they call as packaged business capabilities, and sometimes PBCs as short forms. We do like to use short forms for almost everything. So they do call it that the packaged business capabilities are the building block of composable architecture. And if you see those on the left-hand side, the diagram, it talks about the fact that which is that packaged business capability has ownership of its own data and metadata, which is internal data, and it will have the logic which is sitting to do what it needs to do, and then it will have these interfaces, either which are event driven or your APIs, to expose that functionality that capability has to outside world. And obviously, depending on the kind of capability, you might want to have some kind of user interface to access that capability itself. So this was the building block that Gartner proposed. It's required for building that composability. You build these capabilities, package business capabilities, tie them together like a Lego box, and then we should be able to orchestrate the business events that we need to have as a result of it. And these package business capability needs to be defined at a level which could be coded in your software, could be a program itself. However, now when we come to the context of banking, what should be the banking business capability? Of course, Gartner provided us the guidance towards which way to go, but path needs to be carved out by every industry by themselves. So banking needs to understand what are these package business capabilities for financial services industry itself. And the other question comes, which you guys would relate a lot, is that there is, even if you have the right guidance, sometimes not following the right pattern can lead to more problems. So when we knew that we need to go and enable APIs, we did build our APIs, but without having a right sizing of APIs, we ended up building either too fine-grained APIs or too big to be able to reuse. It could happen exactly the same even when we start building our capabilities as well. So what is the right size for an organization to build it as a package capability? And the last part is there a consistent pattern and approach to identifying consistently what the package business capabilities are going to be for a bank across the whole enterprise, that when we have to tie them together, they fit nicely as a Lego box and give us the whole enterprise itself. So those are the three things which as a bank we needed to as a banking industry, we need to answer for ourselves.
Thanks, Mamta. And is it fair to say that banks in the past have probably done something like this themselves? They've homegrown some kind of capability model. They've defined their API standards. Is it fair to say that while that could solve the problem within the organization, as banks increasingly rely on a third-party ecosystem and software as a service and third-party apps, that the real problem then becomes when everyone has gone and defined their own, these don't sort of fit together when you interoperate between, between the bank and third parties?
Yes, that's a very good point, Nishan. Today, with open banking, with open APIs, with open ecosystem, and with the fintechs coming into the play, who has a more mind share of the customer itself, it is mandatory for the banks to collaborate more, which means that when we look at this package business capabilities, some of them might just be sitting outside the bank. So we should be able to still define it at the industry level in a way that even if it is outsourced or been sourced from a vendor or a partner in our ecosystem, that we can still stick them together with the capabilities that we do have in the bank itself. And that's exactly the point point that BIAN wanted to. With BIAN, we should be able to address that to some extent. And
I guess
before I
if I
go,
think about,
yeah.
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, if I think about the modern experience that customers expect, right? Forget banking for a second. The average user experience now that's offered by Amazon and Google and Apple, they know so much about you. They use that data, and they also combine services to say, there's your location coupled with your, your spending patterns, coupled with your contact preferences, and so, getting notified that the shopping, your favorite shopping, store that's near you is having a sale, is sort of what's
Yeah.
expected these days, right? And so for banks, I think to compete in that modern era and meet the expectations, particularly of younger demographics, there's no way they can do that by themselves. You have to integrate with other services and very non-traditional, non-banking services to do that. So I think I can see the importance of having, a good industry model and a good interoperability layer.
Yeah. So very true, Nishan. I think when BIAN started, as you mentioned, in 2008, their goal was to reduce this interoperability, reduce the cost of integration within the organization itself and also outside the organization, which is becoming more and more important in and today's environment. And that's although this was not the slide that you can see. Is actually a very old slide. This concept, which is the 6 bullet points that you can see as separation of concern, encapsulation, loose coupling, interoperability, reusability, service orientation. Nothing new from the industry point of view, especially technology people. It's just that how do we apply these principles at an enterprise wide so that we can come up with these capabilities, which in case of BIAN we call it as elemental capabilities. And then we'll be able to first define them, understand across the whole enterprise what they are, outside the enterprise with our partners and vendors, and then be able to develop them with our technology supporting that. So these are what BIAN has provided is these elemental capabilities. And if I were to overlay on this, the three characteristics of package business capabilities that Gartner has provided, which was many years after BIAN had identified these elemental capabilities, they quite nicely fit together. So autonomy relate back to the separation of concern and encapsulation, which is the two of the characteristics which each of the elemental capabilities in BIAN has. Modularity is supported by the loose coupling and interoperability. Discovery with reusability, the intention of reusability supports a discovery of these capabilities itself. And of course, with orchestration, with having these services which could be consumed by other capabilities and the services that each of them provide, which is based on service orientation, they support the orchestration that is required in the organization. So you can see, although they did not start at the same point in time, they merged very nicely as the need of the industry was.
I'm going to show my age. I think I learned these six concepts in object-oriented programming 25 years ago in uni. So it is they're good principles, good principles.
Yeah, they're good principles to follow. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to get into a couple of bit more detail of what BIAN provides in terms of artifact. What we call it as artifacts as in their toolbox. So you don't really start with anything. You don't have to start by yourself. Is what BIAN's objective is. That you start with what is already provided. As a bank, what we do is not very different for all the banks in the world does. It's just that we do it slightly differently. And that difference could come into the technology realization of this capability, but the capabilities could still be standardized within the industry itself. And with that principle, they came up with they it's been a little bit of growth. We were at 326 up until last year. This year we have added one more elemental capability. But having said that, we have around 327 elemental capabilities that BIAN has already identified. And you can see, considering the number of capabilities, it can span across all of the different functions that a bank might require. It is good enough level of granularity that we should be able to define the whole of the bank as a result of it. With that, they have also identified and defined 5,000 plus service definitions, which these service domains or elemental capabilities provide today, are defined by these capabilities. And they have also gone ahead and said, okay, because we are trying to support the interoperability in the industry, why not go ahead and define the semantic APIs, understand from business context what is the information which needs to be interacted or communicated within these service domains, for them to be able to orchestrate any business event altogether. So they have already given and defined with contribution from different big banks, small banks, service providers, consulting organizations. So this definition is a knowledge bank from all of these industry practitioners.
What you're saying, Mamta, is if, as a bank, if I wanted to start adopting BIAN today, I'm not starting from scratch. I'm not starting with just a white paper or a picture on a page. I've got a toolbox and a toolkit with a whole bunch of things that have already done for me that I can pick up and use as a basis and build on from there.
Yes, yes, and they have gone ahead. Actually, sorry, I was just going to come back to the package business capability. So this is an example, very specific example of two of the package capabilities, which are a one-to-one alignment to the service domain. So there are two service domains that we have. BIAN has defined. One is called current account, which is the ledger of the current account itself. And there is another one, which is the payment initiation. And we do know that they are tied together very closely with each other. So they, as you can see on in the gray boxes, they have defined the business objects or information that these service domains are managing. They have also defined what type of logic that is each of the service domains are going to do. So for payment instructions, that service domain is going to manage any kind of validation that payment is required to do, any kind of compliance check it needs to do. That's responsibility of the payment instruction service domain itself. It is also responsible to make sure that agreement check is done at the time of payment instruction being processed. And you can see that it can link back, and they have identified even the service operation, which payment instruction is going to call upon to go into current account service domain and check for the payment arrangement which was set up at the time when the current account was set up. So it has linked back already from business object to business object to the service operation. And as you can see at the bottom, we have BIAN has already identified attribute list, which is still at the semantic level, but at least at a very high level, what kind of information is required to be communicated between these service domains, and what kind of information each of these service domains is going to store and manage by themselves. And we can use the service operation as an API, which is what I have depicted here, but it could also be an event to communicate between the two service domain. So as we were talking, that you don't have to start from scratch. A lot of these definitions of what each service domain is supposed to do has already been done by BIAN. So you can lift and shift and start using it as you have to design and architect your own organization.
Thank you. And I think another key maybe takeaway or insight from this is any bank or vendor that's implemented, say, the current account service domain as a capability, uh, because they've aligned to BIAN, you as a bank could be confident that if you were to, let's say, swap out your own current account capability with, say, a third party current account capability, you can be confident that the scope boundary of that capability is a like for like. So it will also, in terms of functionality, it will handle identifier, handle account, manage the arrangement, handle the statement, do the internet handling, interest handling. The API will be standardized. The business objects, I know what I'm getting. It's sort of a very powerful paradigm to be able to say that a capability that's based on BIAN can now be sort of almost sort of switched out like a Lego block with a better implementation of that if it's suitable for the organization.
Yeah, very true, Nishan. And that's exactly the vision of BIAN, is to have a true interoperability and true composability within the organization, with being able to compose out and in these new capability as the bank requires. And they have gone a little bit ahead, and they have also provided, just so that everyone can understand these composable components a little bit better, they also provided a typical way these can be orchestrated together. So one of the example that you can see here is about the mortgage loan origination process, which is shown not as a step of activities, but as shown of orchestrating these capabilities with each other, using the service operations that's going to be called upon to talk to each of these service domains itself. So they are very practical. They are not exhaustive, but they are good indication and good place to start when you start looking at understanding how these capabilities can orchestrate with each other. And very important, it can complement the business architecture work which organization needs to do. So what needs to be changed, what are the values that needs to be identified and delivered, and which capability can then be changed quickly to deliver that value. You can anchor that out using these scenarios, understand better how this value has been delivered to the customer, to the internal employees, and that can complement the business architecture of the organization itself. And least but not the least, most important part is the fact that it can show you how the information is flowing between these service domains. So you can have a very good understanding of where exactly your information resides, how it is in transit, how is it in motion, where do you need to have the right level of controls and security put in place to make sure that this information is protected for any kind of data leakage or contractual or control consideration. So that's a very good starting point as well.
Fantastic. And so again, if I were to pick up BIAN, I'm not starting from a clean slate. I can look at the existing business scenarios that they would have defined for origination of various products, for processing payment, for position settling an account. I can pick these up. I can use these as a starting point. I may want to change them and offer slightly differentiated experiences, but it's not like I'm doing all of it from scratch. And it seems to me
Yeah.
these business scenarios can also be broken down and mapped into my value streams and into my user journeys. So I can see where buy-in can start to act as a glue between those kind of strategy elements of value streams and journeys down into my technology layer in terms of the APIs and the application functionality.
Yes, absolutely. So there are two angles to it. One is business in motion, which is your value streams, and the business scenario can very nicely map to the value stream. And the other angle is business business in the current state or static state, which is how your applications are, how your systems are supporting that part of that particular service domain. And the view that you can see can be very nicely linked back to that you can create a boundary around this set of service domains and can say these my applications, my systems that I'm going to build, they will have the boundaries of these service domains which are sitting there. So you know how your application portfolio is very neatly providing the functionalities. There's no overlap of functionalities between these the clusters of service domains itself. And you just build once, the functionality is built once in the organization, maybe twice depending on certain criteria, but basically not 10 times within the organizations, which generally is the case today, where which is what the architecture by accident rather than by design state of it. So definitely. And the last part, which very important, which was the core goal of BIAN, was to do the interoperability, and supporting that interoperability. What BIAN has gone ahead and defined is these service operations, and these service operations, not just the service operation, they have also defined the semantic APIs which the service operation enable, and to the extent that the message that needs to go on the semantic API, what is the information that needs to be exchanged on the semantic API, which could be a very good starting point for designing your integration architecture in the bank. The point that we were talking about earlier is to be able to understand exactly what kind of integration that you have, which services and which function that they are exposing can be very neatly defined and aligned with these service operations which BIAN has identified. And another good thing is it is not based on someone coming up and thinking that this is the service operation supposed to be. It is all pattern based. So once, if you have to extend it because the industry has changed or the need of the industry is changing, as long as we can stick to this pattern, it could be extended. We can create new service operations, which means that even though we are extending it, it will still fit together like the Lego box. So it's kind of given us the frame for it, and now we can cut out as many Lego boxes as we want, which can suit our organization's need. And yes, the last slide, which is very important part again of the information management, which is getting more and more critical in all of the banks, is understanding what is the data, understanding where it is residing, how it is being used. And if there is a duplicate, the quality of data is a very big concern because of duplicate functionality, duplicate in the organization today. It is very difficult to understand what is the right system of record for a specific information and whether the quality of the data is correct or not. And that's exactly with BIAN defined business objects. It helps us to understand our data landscape a little bit better. They have also gone ahead and mapped to ISO. So if the organization is looking at adopting ISO, the business objects which are there in ISO is exactly the same as BIAN. So you're not building or implementing it twice. It is once you have implemented BIAN, you are ISO compliant. You just have to build the physical implementation of that ISO integration as well. So that's another benefit of using BIAN as your information management, as a toolbox in your own organization to understand your information and data a little bit better.
So in the same way, I can think of service domains as, BIAN defining business capabilities as Lego blocks and creating a pattern-based framework for it. I can think of the business object model as basically my data Lego blocks, which are clearly defined, connect to each other. There's no ambiguity. They're mutually exclusive. They're collectively exhaustive. That's a fantastic way to think about organizing data.
Yeah, and one of the principle of BIAN's defining the service domain is that every service domain has ownership of certain business object, and only that service domain in the whole landscape is the owner of that business object itself. So the other service domain doesn't have it. So it's mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive model, which is both at the information layer and also at the whole of enterprise level as well. So you know exactly which of those enterprise components I'm going to manage which business object in the organization. So that was a very quick introduction to BIAN itself. I hope people listening to us would have realized that how exhaustive BIAN is, how rich BIAN is, and it can kickstart your organization's architecture towards the future.
My head is spinning. There's so much good stuff there. So I guess let's talk about how you take all this goodness and start to leverage it. How can you adopt buy-in and in your organization? So if we jump to the next slide, it probably helps to first sort of summarize what is it that makes what's buy-in's secret sauce? What is it that enables it to deliver all these benefits? And so just very quickly, the six probably most interesting characteristics of buy-in that hopefully you would have taken away from the previous few slides is firstly, it's canonical, meaning the business function and the description of what the role and purpose of each service domain is consistently interpreted across any deployment, across any geography, across any bank. So the fact that you can introduce a common language within the organization for business and technology and for different departments to all be speaking the same language when they start to describe whether it's the requirements of the capabilities they need or the user journeys and the orchestrations they have to enable, that the fact that buy-in gives you a standard language automatically solves that, a huge problem plaguing banks and large organizations today. The second, as we touched on earlier, the ability to link your strategy to capabilities starts to create that bridge between the why, which is the big picture stuff, right? Why we do it? Why are we doing this? It's to grow deposits. Why are we doing this? It's to acquire more customers. Being able to link that down into your planning, into your technology, is a huge step forward. There's an anecdote, right? I always share when President Kennedy was touring the NASA facility. He went to speak to, he went and saw everything they were doing. This was in the 60s. That he spoke to the astronauts and the scientists and the physicists and the engineers. And on his way out, he walked past a janitor, and he stopped the janitor and he said, "So what is it you do around here?" And without hesitating, the janitor said, "I'm helping put a man on the moon," which is a very powerful response because the janitor could have said, "Well, my job is to mop the floor or clean the bathrooms," but instead he had a clear linkage of what he did to the purpose of the organization, which at the time that was NASA's primary goal, right? Be the first to put a man on the moon. So I think if you can get your whole organization to understand how they link up to the strategy, you're already miles ahead of your competition. The third item, which Mamta covered very comprehensively around composability, is probably one of buy-in's most powerful benefits. The fourth, the fact that it is composable, it starts to help eliminate complexity. You can break down your functions, your systems, your monoliths, and start to identify your overlaps, your duplications, your redundancies, and start to eliminate them. So you can get a much simpler technology landscape than the spaghetti mess that we saw before. The fifth characteristic is also, it's subtle but very, very important. Buy-in and the service domain and the capabilities it describes and the business objects it defines, they are stable over time. The underlying implementation might change, but because buy-in stays at that semantic level, you can be confident that what it describes as a current account will be a current account for the foreseeable future. It's not likely to change. The way you implement it might change, but the definition of a current account won't change. And last but not least, and we'll touch on this in the coming slides, when you think of architecture and you think about adopting a new architecture, you probably think of the tablecloth, right? You got to take all the things off the table, change the tablecloth, and then put all the things back on the table. Not so with buy-in. Because it's a pattern-based architecture, you can actually adopt it incrementally and in small areas of the organization and still get benefit from it. And you can adopt it knowing that when you adopt it in other areas, they will all connect consistently. You're not going to end up, accidentally building a bridge from both ends and finding it doesn't meet in the middle. Buy-in is, the boundaries are so clearly defined, the patterns are so clearly defined. If you take it, say, in your credit card area or payments area or mortgages area, you don't have to then, adopt it across the rest of the enterprise to get any kind of value from it. So all these lead to the benefits we've seen, right? Ease the integration with legacy systems, reduce your duplication and fragmentation, break your transformation into incremental stages, and promote solution reuse. All of this translates to the bottom line of reduced cost, faster time to market, and ultimately just better customer journeys and experiences, which is really what banks are there to offer today.
Yeah. I like the sixth one the most because we've reached here after many, many years. There is no
Yep.
way that we can transform in a day. We need to do
Yeah,
one
that's
step
it.
at a time, slowly get to where should we ideally should have been.
Spot on. So, if I'll be brief on this because I think we've been so enthusiastic about communicating buy-in. Where we do want to leave time for questions. But if we summarize what we've talked about, right, the current state is very familiar to most people, right? It's a spaghetti mess. You've got complex integrations. These lead to things like no clear business capability or value stream ownership, right? It's very hard in the organization now because of the complexity to find out very clearly who owns what. The integration layer is in any bank now is an inconsistent mix of point-to-point interfaces and lots of different integration standards. Your core banking capabilities are intermingled with your product and channel capabilities, so you get this sort of these monolithic, very intertwined systems. Your data is scattered across product systems and warehouses and data marts, and no doubt a desktop PC sitting under someone's office desk. You end up with duplicate product systems, multiple payment systems, multiple card platforms. And lastly, the platform ownership itself has no clear alignment to the business capabilities or the value streams. So where we want to head to, which is the target state on the right, is having clear value streams and user journeys, being able to map those to your, I think we've jumped slides a little
Oh,
early. Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. Where we want to get to on the right is to be able to then create an alignment between the business capabilities and the value streams, to be able to have clear ownership of those business capabilities, which is the service domain, to have reusability across these service domains across multiple value streams, to have APIs aligned to an industry standard so that you can start to leverage third-party best-of-breed solutions more easily, to have a clearly defined information model, enable your analytics, enable your reporting without having to spend the bulk of your effort sourcing the data, cleaning the data, etc. And lastly, being able to map your capabilities to the enabling platforms so that your janitor knows that they're helping put a man on the moon. So how can we get there? As we said, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. It doesn't have to be done in one leap. At CC&C, we are helping banks in pretty much every continent now. Moving from a current state with fragmented enterprise landscape, duplicated capabilities, point-to-point APIs with no reuse, leading to control gaps, a lot of regulatory risk, slow time to market, high cost of change, high operational expense. We're basically helping in a multi-step process. Firstly, map and classify. Define your buy-in-based service landscape and map the applications. Classify your APIs and identify the degree of buy-in alignment. With that, you can identify duplication of capabilities. You can improve the interoperability and reuse, and you can improve your change impact analysis for transformation. You can then move on to the next step, which is to align and wrap. So leverage buy-ins wireframes and the first order connections to group your capabilities. Leverage buy-ins as API semantic definitions to expose standard interfaces. Abstract the complexity away from your systems and enable identification of capabilities so that you can start to identify where you want to invest and what you want to retire. And once you've done that, you get to that nirvana. You can rationalize your capabilities, do your app rationalization, reuse the buy-in aligned APIs, align to other banks and vendors who have adopted buy-in, and as a result, you can reduce your cost of change and operational expense. So hopefully you can kind of see how that journey could look. When we talk about buy-in's extensive capabilities, we have a framework in which we help organizations sort of break down, how do you in what way do you want to adopt buy-in? Because buy-in can do a lot of things. Every organization will have to have that foundation you see at the bottom. There has to be leadership awareness. There has to be an organizational alignment. You have to equip your staff. We deliver training. You can get certified on buy-in. you should at least understand how your organization's enterprise landscape aligns to BIAN. From there, you've actually got a few different ways you can apply BIAN. And clients we work with doing one or more of these. But interestingly, no two banks are doing focusing on the exact same problem. It depends on their unique set of characteristics. So you can adopt BIAN as a reference architecture, in which you set it as an enterprise reference model, use it for application portfolio management, use it for investment prioritization, and more. You can also use BIAN as a very solid basis of your API strategy, classifying your APIs, rationalizing your APIs, aligning your APIs. You can take it as a service-based operating model. So if as an organization you're looking to realign and become more agile and more lean, BIAN itself, because of its reusable and agile component model, can feed into decisions you need to make around organizational design, your operating model, your governance, and more. BIAN is also a very, very powerful sort of ally to your business architecture capabilities. So you can actually align BIAN to your business architecture, use those service domains, map them into your business capabilities, align them to your value streams and user journeys, and that links your business strategy. It provides you with a business capability model. You can do your value stream analysis. You can do your business process framework alignment. And then last but not least, as an information architecture, BIAN offers a huge head start to define a common enterprise data model to feed, to augment or strengthen your data governance, allow you to take lineage analysis, critical data analysis, and ultimately build data products and monetize. And these various ways you can use BIAN can translate into lots of different banking use cases that you can see across the top. And that list is by no means exhaustive, but I'm sure those of you on the call, if you're working in a bank, you're probably doing one or more of the things on the very top. So again, adopting BIAN can help accelerate that.
So Nishan, what you're saying is that no matter what the problem is, there is always a part of BIAN that I can use to solve that particular problem. It's just trying to get started with where can it add value the most to start with.
That's it. Yep. You don't have to do it all. You can just pick the area that adds value. That's exactly right. Which then actually takes us to kind of the last segment of the talk, right? Which is where to next? How can we help? So at CC&C, we've actually classified the journey of banks in adopting BIAN based on our experience and the work we do. We've been able to sort of characterize that journey into 9 stages. Three stages, each with 3 steps. Now, no bank is necessarily, this is not a linear flow. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You don't get banks necessarily following each step linearly. However, depending on where you've adopted BIAN and what level of maturity you're at, you can start by kind of classifying some banks at stage 1, where there's a degree of being BIAN active. Right? They've recognized BIAN as an industry architecture. They're developing a business case, starting to participate in forums. And then you can move into that sort of BIAN committed, where you're using it as a target reference architecture. You're developing your service landscape. You're doing a POC with some service domains and APIs. And then you get to that BIAN realized stage, where you really start to scale it across the organization, embed it in your IT ops and your biz ops, and align all your artifacts and APIs and design. There's not many organizations that are at the very, very far right-hand side. That's still a journey. But many have, gone to quite a strong degree of maturity, and the benefits that have been published in various case studies are very, very strong, very, very compelling. So we are excited to help banks with that.
Yeah. So I think in the stage 3 is when you start looking at other models and frameworks, also integrating with BIAN, and to really provide the benefit across the whole enterprise in a very consistent cross framework, cross standards from that point of view. Yeah.
Hold on. And that takes us to where to from here. So for those of you on the session who are kind of operating more as an individual, there are steps you can take, right? Visit our website, learn more about our offerings, visit bian.org and access the free documentation that's available on BIAN. So you can do a lot of self-education. We do also offer training and certification. So you can visit our training website, learn more about our offerings, you can reach out to us at info@CC&C Solutions and get scheduled onto the next available course. And more importantly, evangelize in your organization. Discuss BIAN with your leadership. You can contact us to assist you with sharing the BIAN benefits and adoption approach. Right, we can come and speak to your leaders. As an organization, that you can learn about our corporate training and certification programs and which options are right for you to get that team skills uplift. We do assist with building business cases and getting that kind of benefits and adoption approach sort of refined so that you can stand up a business case to adopt BIAN. And then to do that as well, we can come in and do discovery workshops and kind of help you, tailor the BIAN journey for your organization based on your current state and your investment priorities. So with that, we will wrap up our portion. Hopefully, we've left a little bit of time for some questions. So I'll hand back to the moderator.
Thank you, Nishan and Mamta. Thank you for that insightful presentation. So we do have some questions. So I'll go through a question over here in the session. So Robert asked a question. So what's the process for mapping a bank's existing IT architecture to the BIAN reference model? Can Sparx EA assist in automating this mapping, or is it primarily a manual process?
I'll
I
take
defer to
that.
Mamta for that. Yes.
Yes, tool is very important in terms of mapping. It's obviously there is a knowledge which needs to be had, but now with the information already being digitized in a lot of different within the organization, I think it is very important to bring that information which is digitized into a tool like EA Spark, which can then facilitate the mapping itself. But not to say that you still need an SME information to understand the both side of the mapping. One is understanding the capability, and second is understanding the application. But the tool definitely helps in making it faster than sitting and doing it in Excel sheet.
Great. So we have moved the rest of the questions to the Slack channel, tagging the user and you as well, so that you can continue to answer those questions in the Slack channel. So yes, and thank you once again, Mamta Sarangal and Nishan Jebanasam, for that insightful presentation on transforming banking, leveraging an industry reference model BIAN for a future-ready architecture. We greatly appreciate your deep dive into the BIAN architecture framework and its applications in the banking industry. To our audience, we hope you found today's session informative and that you're inspired to implement these concepts in your own projects. If you have any further questions, please feel free to continue the discussion on our Slack channel, where both the speakers and the team will be available to provide additional insights. Up next, we have an exciting session titled Use Decision Modeling to Predict the Future and Simulate Outcomes Across Diverse Fields, from Finance to Healthcare, by Stephen Magri. We look forward to seeing you there. Stay tuned for more enriching sessions ahead. There are more exciting sessions coming up, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.